I wanna welcome Maddie. You guys have seen on our calls quite a bit. She's been a staple of the Fair Play calls for some time now. So shout out to you. Also, welcome Ashley, May, and Nina from my Ninja Tune family, and three of the big brains behind this Big Dada relaunch that's going on. And so, I mean, I thought it might be a good idea to kind of start and give people, there's a lot of music heads here. So a lot of people know Ninja Tune, a lot of people know Big Dada, but I think it would be a good idea to kind of give folks a little history lesson on what exactly Big Dada was and it, before this year. You guys want to hop in on that?
Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi is a bit, can you guys hear me? Or maybe while I get it, okay. Well, I guess Big Dada has had a really big history for a while now. It's been going on for the past 15, I don't even know the years on the top of my head, but I mean, we've been releasing music from Young Fathers, and sorry. May, do you want to step in? Sorry, I'm getting really distracted by something that's outside, which I need to get really quickly.
I can jump in. Big Dada was a pivotal label in the 90s for UK hip hop music. One of the biggest acts was Roots Manuva. And that kind of led to, Big Dada having this consciousness and mission statement even back then of wanting to put out music that they just truly believed in and like support the artist 100% behind the project without any sort of like industry things coming in and kind of messing with that genuineness with the project. And I feel like there's a really good Roots Manuva quote that I use to explain what Big Dada was. I'll read that to you guys if you like. Roots Manuva is such a legend, but he goes, Big Dada is unique and it will always be unique because of its philosophy. It's unique because it dares to stick its neck out and it's run by people who genuinely love music. It's not just a record label, it's a movement. And, that was a philosophy that Big Dada stuck to for all those years and something that we still cherish here now.
You want to add anything, Nina?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just obviously a very historic, influential label. Yeah, Roots Manuva, Sampa the Great. I mean, King Jeter, just like so many releases.
So Big Dada has traditionally been like an outlet for like a lot of the hip hop that Ninja Tune was like releasing, at least when I started, listening and like working with you guys, or like things that were kind of leaning in that direction. But like, what was the kind of impetus for the kind of relaunch and reevaluation of what the label is this year?
So, for a long time, Big Dada was run by this music writer, Will, amazing music writer. And he stepped aside at some point, maybe like 5 years ago. I'm not sure exactly what time period, but after he left, Big Dada kind of lost that someone to give it that focus and to like drive it forward. So it kind of became a label that was just a part of the Ninja Tune family without having like a label head per se. But so that happened, and then we saw an opportunity to take something that was historic and continue its legacy without it letting it peter out, and a label that was really built upon the work of Black artists. And we wanted to take that power that those artists gave that label and give it back to the people running the label as well, and have it be something that's run by Black and POC people, for Black and POC artists. That way the power structures where the artists are helping this label grow is also a part of like just changing the way that a label is run, where like the artists and the music that's helping the label grow is also run by the same people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a different understanding there when, the people who are kind of running the show understand your specific point of view, struggle, thoughts in a different, I mean, it's just a different way. So what do you feel like were the main things that you guys had to change to kind of achieve this?
I feel like we as a company, we were having conversations about internal policies and internal structures. And I think one thing we wanted to see change was, we didn't really see a lot of POC staff or Black members of staff in senior positions and, as executives and stuff like that. And as much as, we want to be putting out music and working with artists that really align with our vision, that we thought it was really important to really take a look inside and see how we were operating also. Because I just feel like, I think a lot of conversations that we had were about the general ecosystem, the general music industry ecosystem, and how hard it is to start as an artist or as a staff member. Just getting your foot into the business is really difficult. So that's a big thing that we're trying to focus on, in hiring and people we're working with. And yeah, I think we want to look inside and see how we can shift things before we start working with other people and artists and stuff like that.
So did you guys end up promoting people from within then? Like what were the kind of like initial changes that you guys made?
Well, I guess when this came about, a group of us thought this was a good idea, and we kind of put the idea forward to our CEO, who was all for it and just kind of like greenlit the whole thing. So from then on, we kind of, I guess, just took over everything related to Big Dada, and we started like a group of staff members who were already in at the company, at the wider company, and basically, had conversations about what people want to do, what their ambitions are, what kind of departments or different sectors of the industry do they want to get involved in. And it was a nice, I think, conversation about not just mobility for artists that we're working with, but also for staff members as well, who maybe are not seeing such a huge career growth in their wider ninja role. But I think that's now, I think the way that they've been giving us freedom to like move and create our own roles has positively affected, I think, the way our roles are, at Ninja as well. So yeah, I think it's been kind of just like shifting the way that we do things a lot.
And also like access to knowledge within the music industry. You could work at a label, or I work on the publishing side. So it's like there's so much that I'm not privy to in terms of like the label side of things, or just access to knowledge and like mentorship. You know what I mean? So that was like a big part of it, is that it felt like kind of like sometimes working at a music label or anywhere in music, it kind of gets cliquey, and there's gatekeeping in terms of knowledge. So something that we're trying to do with Big Dada is like, there's not really a hierarchy. It's like everyone can have input within any realm of the label. So it's like we're all kind of working together and teaching each other and allowing each other to, first of all, have access to the information, and secondly, have a part in it, even if it is in your specific department.
What do you guys, are there any like core tenets of the way that the label functions now? Like things that you guys changed immediately and like, moved on with artists that you've signed, or what changed right away?
Yeah, I think it was Ashley said, just basically handing it over. Yeah, I think before it was just kind of under the Ninja Tune umbrella and was one of our many little sub labels. And there was, I don't know, it was kind of just haphazard the way things were decided to be released on Big Dada. There was like we said there wasn't really like a person behind it, like that had some grand vision. It was just kind of like a feeder label for Ninja Tune. Yeah, so then the group of us that kind of had this idea came together. So I think there's about 6 like core people that originally came with the idea and that were maybe a little more like mid level at the company. Yeah, so we've kind of been leading that along with junior staff members who are interested in getting into new areas. Yeah, so pretty much right away we just kind of took it over. Like we worked on a mission statement together, and kind of came up with what our values were, like what we wanted to see. And I think these convos started like at the same time when you started this fair play group. It was all like around the protests. Yeah, so it was a similar time frame. And then we basically just immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds like the label is not only like an incubator for these artists that you guys are bringing in, but it's really been an incubator for people who are working at the company to kind of like build and grow. I mean, I'm curious, have you guys signed anybody since you guys made the announcement? Have you noticed a difference in the way that those projects are developing within the company?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, just every artist conversation we have has been very important in us learning how to be better as a label. You know what I mean? Like with every artist we talk to, there is such a, I feel like, negative feeling towards labels right now. And just learning about their experiences. Like with each artist we talk to, we ask them what they're looking for from a label. And a lot of people feel like an artist is working for a label, but it's actually, to me, it should be the label working for the artist. So that's something interesting that I've been learning through our conversations with artists. But yeah, we have one signing that released an EP this year, Yaya Bay. I'm not sure if you guys know about her. She's a New York City based artist. She's amazing. And we're working with her on a full length album as well. And you know, Yaya Bay kind of is like a great example of an artist who's been around in the music industry and has worked really hard and put in so much time and effort, yet didn't have access to the same resources that maybe her white peers had. So I think just working with her and seeing how much she's been able to grow as an artist with just these like basic resources that I think so many artists deserve to have without having to reach a huge milestone within the music industry. It's been really great. And like a big goal of ours is to help artists just grow, kind of like back in the day what indie labels used to be like, where they'd sign like a very up and coming artist and help them grow and give them those resources without it having to take 10 years for the artist to reach that milestone to finally have the indies fighting over them or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's an interesting landscape, what's going on now, period, just with the current climate, socially, politically, but also COVID, but also everything. And just, yeah, like providing some kind of like a level playing field for people to really build their own art is, I feel like, you know, I think a lot of the label people who are on this call would probably agree. They try to do the same thing. I want to definitely open the conversation up to questions. So just, you know, you guys marinate on if there's anything you want to ask these ladies. But I also want to ask you guys one more, you know, before we like get into talking to the crew. Yeah, I mean, like just from your endeavors in the last couple months, like, are there changes that you would like to see more widespread? Are there changes you guys have made that you feel like should be more widely adapted? What kind of goals do you guys have going forward with what you're doing over there?
I think one thing is that it'd be really nice to see, you know, it's really nice to see like fair play. This is amazing. Like things like this where people are continuously meeting a year out from the protest, and it's not you know, where you're coming together as a group. I think that's what we want to see more of in the industry, in whichever format that it comes, you know, like every company or every institution like has a different need, a different way to change things. And I just hope it's, yeah, constantly a conversation. And I hope that in the industry specifically, I hope that more power and recognition goes towards like Black and POC artists and Black and POC staff members in this industry, just, you know, everyone, yeah, working in this industry. And I hope that, yeah, we can continue to have like these conversations and actual goals and be working on things. And yeah.
Yeah, I think just more transparency and less gatekeeping in terms of knowledge, I think is really important, and something that when we talk to any artist, whether we work with them or not, we provide them with like a resources page that they can access that has all this information about how to release music and everything that goes into it. Or I always tell artists, like, feel free to text me any question you have about the music industry. I am ready to answer it or whatever. And just giving people knowledge gives them so much strength. And that's something I've been feeling as well. Just as I gain knowledge, I become more confident, and providing people with that, I think, is really important within the music industry, whether it's your staff members and mentorship or with the artists that you work with, I think is really important.
Yeah, I just to piggyback off of what May said, I feel like the transparency thing is really important, and something that we, yeah, just transparency within everything, within how a company structure is, or even when you're doing deals with artists. Like, I feel like a lot of times the artists don't get the full picture of what they're signing up for, and that's how artists are always indebted to all these labels. And I think, yeah, being really upfront and transparent about our goals and what our goals are with the artist, as well as, yeah, just transparency in general, I think would be an amazing thing to see. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to like, we want our artists to succeed. We want them to recoup. We don't want them to be in debt to us. And these are things that we are always saying to them, you know, like budget conversations are more of an actual conversation, because they know that we want them to succeed and we want their project to recoup, and we don't want artists to be in debt to us. Like, that's not the point. And I know a lot of artists become indebted. But yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi is cutting out.
You're good. Nina, anything you want to add before we open it up?
Yeah, I think, sorry, the dog's barking. I think, yeah, I mean, it's constantly like a work in progress, these conversations. Like, it isn't at all that now that Big Dada like is a thing, that everything at Ninja Tune is solved and is perfect. But yeah, I think like with these things, like this meeting, like it's basically something you always have to address, like how can we change, or I don't know, there's basically always going to be issues, and it just has to be a constant conversation on how you can improve and just do your best. Yeah.
How about questions from the crew? Anybody want to ask these ladies anything?
You know, I ain't got a problem going first, man.
I was
Hello.
hoping you had something to say.
I always do. And I want to thank you guys for being here too. You know what I'm saying? It's very meaningful. As an artist who's dealing with label politics and independence all at the same time, and radio, and trying to identify weaknesses in infrastructure, this is a very meaningful conversation. And it made me wonder if you could kind of go into a bit, not only the size of the company as a whole and how you guys broke off what size of the team that is, but also how you went about simplifying the complexities of the problems that come with the infrastructure in the music industry, where it's often marginalized and the power structure is presented in an esoteric way, but also crammed down your throat as leadership.
Did you want to answer, Ashley?
Sorry, it cut my Wi-Fi cut out, so I didn't hear it.
Okay. So that's something we even talk about still now within our structure of the internal Big Data team is, first of all, like our autonomy, and also how do we keep it being something that's not hierarchical as much as possible. We still have two label managers, Alex and Victoria, who aren't on this call right now, but we really, I think, try to, again, first of all, transparency is such a big part of it. Like Alex and Victoria keep us updated on everything and ask for our opinions. And I think we've done a really good job of solidifying our crew and making sure we're all on the same wavelength in terms of what we want for Big Data. So I think it's having those kind of conversations. And again, it took us like 4 to 6 months to get to the place where we announced Big Data. So we spent a lot of time in between that discussing things, and we're still constantly discussing things and just making sure we're not, again, like, yeah, restructuring. Like we had to have a conversation recently about like making sure that we're not putting too much on each staff member, or we're not, so it's like we're constantly talking about it and making sure that we are aware of these power structures that happen no matter what. And I think we're lucky that we do have the support of Ninja Tune. And we are a smaller label, but we do have the structure of a bigger label behind us. So we're kind of in this utopian situation in that we do have support when a lot of smaller labels don't have that sort of support that we do.
Do you have like an example of a situation that you felt this shift in focus and infrastructural, I guess perspective or vision was a victory for you guys? Something that like you feel like that worked, whereas it wouldn't have worked previously.
Do we have any?
I guess, I mean, I don't think it would really work to have a whole like group of six to seven people with the same position doing the same thing like at another company, because there's always some politics and power structures that come into play. And maybe it's because it's only been a year on. we have a really amazing group of people, honestly, that it's really hard to have issues. And if you do, like May said, we have such an open forum for that. So I feel like that in and of itself feels like a victory, that we were able to work so well together, without there being, like a clear boss or like a clear leader, I guess. So yeah, that part feels cool to me. I don't think we'd be able to do this at Ninja Tune. I don't think, we'd be able to all be on the same level, fighting for the same goal without it getting messy. Yeah, hopefully it can stay on that track.
Yeah, that's something to think about, is like when you start something small and you try to scale it up, the issues that come with it. You know what I mean? So I think we're lucky that we are a small group right now and have found each other as like-minded individuals. This is the first time in my 7 years of working in the music industry that I have felt like I found people who are on the same wavelength as me, is how I want to approach the music ecosystem. So it's kind of about finding your people, and having that like luck of being able to work together is rare, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what this group has actually been working on is advocating for the voices of different musicians, staff members, community members, to have, when we're talking about whether it's like Black music, people of color in the community, just making sure that there is like a place for all of that amongst everything else. So like, I mean, it sounds like starting the conversation on your side was actually reciprocated, or was not reciprocated. What's welcomed, I guess. And I think a lot of us, and I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but I think a lot of people are kind of still trying to figure out how to continue to increase their voice in their specific environments. So like seeing a situation like this work is super encouraging, but also I think still, like you said, very much for a lot of us and for you guys, a work in progress, right? Like it's still not perfect.
No. And it's all about being open, you know what I mean? Being open and trying to just work together on it. and it's really fun to work out all the problems as well. And like taking on those problems is not a negative thing, but as just a way to grow, I think is how we've been approaching it.
Anybody else have any questions about how this is all working out?
I actually had a question. In light of this new structure and taking into account the historical aspect of the label, how are you guys sort of applying a new philosophy as far as onboarding new artists, and what do you look at when potentially bring somebody new onto Big Dada?
May, do you want to take that one?
Okay, yeah. I mean, in terms of artists, you know, we've been talking to both small and big artists. The main thing is that we want to work with artists who have a strong artistic vision and don't feel like they want to be boxed into like a certain style. I think a lot of the conversations we've had with artists, their past label experiences, is that the label really wants them to sound a certain way based on what their perceptions of the artist are. So we try not to put our perceptions of what the artist should be on them, and try to work with artists who are just strong in their artistry. You know what I mean? I think we've been lucky to be talking to artists like that and then also strong in terms of their beliefs of how they impact the music ecosystem. I think that's something really important, is responsibility towards how you're impacting the music ecosystem as an artist and obviously as a label. So we're just kind of finding like-minded individuals, and in terms of the artists we talk to, it's like you really feel it when you're talking to them if they're genuine about the same sort of things that we're genuine about, which is uplifting each other, positively affecting the music ecosystem, and also not letting stereotypes or these antiquated like ways of thinking impact the way the artist wants to grow. So if that answers your question. And what was the other part of your question? Sorry. The second.
I think you nailed it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And I'll paste the mission statement we came up with in the chat. Yeah, so that might
It took us so long to figure out the wording for this.
Yeah, we spent a long time on this. It's not very long, but we spent a long time on it.
But also it just feels like, again, it's not like terminology can be it can really be hard to explain yourself using the terminology that we have currently. You know what I mean? So I feel like, again, that's something we're all learning and working on.
And kind of, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
And just kind of noticing the differences like culturally around the world, because we're working with across like the UK office. We have like French people on the team. We have people from all over. So it's interesting to know, like to get different perspectives about not just racism in America, but like how it works in other countries and other cultures. And that's why the terminology is so hard, because it's some terminology in like American English is like, yeah, that POC or you know, by POC, and in other countries they would never use that and use a different word. So yeah, it's been an ongoing conversation, and I don't think it's like completely perfect, but I don't know if terminology will ever be like completely perfect.
Would you say that the would you say that like the core because what I'm hearing, and the biggest difference between you guys and like all the other labels I deal with and all the other rap bullshit is it seems that you guys are very much putting an emphasis on a developmental aspect of dealing with an artist, whereas these days most of the time when you go with a label, it's practically just distro and like, hey, we got a budget and we'll post your shit. So would you say that is like, you know, one of the core aspects of your advocacy?
Definitely. I think you kind of like, you summed it up really, really well there. Like that's been a really big focus for us, to work with developing artists. And I think we've all seen it so many times where a label, yeah, as you say, has the big budgets, poaches artists, and their whole campaign kind of falls through. And then if it falls through, they're dropped, or yeah. And I really don't like seeing that, because I think that's kind of how you end up with like a vapid ecosystem, a vapid industry, and a lot of times there's not a lot of support given to developing artists. And that was one thing that was a huge part of our conversations, was that labels love to use the term like commercially viable when talking about music, and we find that just so problematic. Like, what does commercially viable music mean? Like, okay, you are white maybe, and you come from a privileged background, so you had the resources to get there. So yeah, the commercially viable term was just didn't make sense to us. So I think the developing artist is a huge part, because, well, we can get artists to become commercially viable if labels and people who have the authority are, listening to the artists who can get there. So I think developing artists is a huge part of the label.
That is awesome. Awesome.
So we're creeping towards 3. We should probably start wrapping up. If anybody has any last bits, you can either leave it in the chat, or we could probably do one last question. One thing I will mention is that another thing that Big Dada has been doing is putting out some really cool editorial pieces, which actually kind of follow this theme of like providing resources, and they're not just for their own artists. So if you go and check out, the post that Nina popped up, or you check out their Instagram, I know they have a couple of things. We reposted one content piece, and I think another one just went live today, and that was about resources for mental health. So we'll definitely take a look at that, but also just keep an eyeball peeled for content coming on that side. Yeah, can you guys put the IG and Twitter for Big Dada in the chat?
Yeah, I'll do that.
And then, one thing I forgot to mention too before we dip, anybody who's not getting the agenda and the notes, the updates, that wants to be getting it, make sure you leave your info in the chat also, and I'll pluck it out of there. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody for showing up today. I really, really, really appreciate it. Ashley, May, Nina, it was great for you guys to kind of walk us through this. I hope that people look at what you guys are doing and hear more about what you guys are doing. And, I know for a fact, just from being on these calls, that a lot of labels are thinking about stuff like this and how to internalize different ways to make change. And I think a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about, whether it's the way that artists are A&R'd, access, tools, all these things are things that folks are actively trying to and working on changing. So it's really interesting to hear what you guys have in your toolbox over there, and what you guys have been working on. And yeah, I hope that people look at the way that you guys have been both promoting from within and bringing in voices from outside to kind of really, get this new incarnation of Big Dada going.
Great. Feel free to hit us up with any questions. Always happy to answer anything.
Cool. Anybody else have anything before we dip?
I just want to say that was really, really dope. And I think I accidentally sent a private message to somebody and then in the group chat. So my bad, I had in your inbox. But stuff like this is really meaningful conversations, and I really appreciate it. And I'm following all of y'all. And if there's ever anything I can do for you as well, holla at me straight up.
Thank you.
And really, thanks a lot for everybody who took time out of their day to sit and listen, to be a part of the conversation, to contribute to this group every week after week. I love y'all. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys back here, unless anybody has anything else, next week, same time, 2 p.m. All right. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.
Toodaloo. It's good to see you.